Well, I lied on the last beginning of the show. I came up with a different name. I figured around the sound, like I'll probably use that for something like to wrap up for all the
Hmm.
sports around here. So, I mean, it would have made sense, but we changed it. Welcome back for the second episode of Soundwaves from the Sea, weekly
Ooh,
Seattle Sounders show. Owen Murray joins me, of course, with his Ducks hat and his Ducks
of
everything, and
course.
I know. I'll deal with it. I mean, there are no losses this past week, so that's
No,
good.
no, no.
One of them will feel like a loss in a way,
Mhm.
but things started off pretty well for the Sounders. We're going to talk about the two matches that the club played. Obviously, the CONCACAF Champions Cup match, the new iteration of what used to be the CONCACAF Champions League. The Sounders obviously had their home opener for MLS regular season play against Charlotte in a wet Lumen Field. And then we'll talk briefly about the report, I think initially from our friend Nico Moreno, that the club discussed bringing back club legend and midfielder Nico Lodeiro before he went over and signed with Houston Dynamo, which is a fact. I don't know what Houston's doing nowadays. I really don't. Before a little look ahead, as the club has another CONCACAF Champions Cup and MLS regular season match week ahead of them. So, I mean, things started off really well this week. I mean, I was really happy with what,
Mm.
well, at least the end result of the Champions Cup match, right? I mean, 3-1 on the road in Guatemala. He scored. Paul Arriola scores in the third minute. You say, hey, like offensive issues, scored in the third minute. New guy, he's the one who did it. Like, that was nice to see. Good to see Pedro have a nice strike and get that goal in the 61st minute. And then Albert puts it away in the 90 plus three with a nice little tuck past the keeper. Um, I mean, I was a little worried going into halftime considering that Antigua did tie this in the 24th. But like the aggression early on was nice. And just with a match like this in CONCACAF, like none of these road matches are ever going to be any they're not going to be easy. Like these are always going
No.
to be you're going to have to really grind and grit for these. God, I'm using football buzzwords, it feels like. Um, I don't know. What did you think about this one? Because I didn't know how I felt really honestly going into this. Um, Considering it being a CONCACAF road match and I wasn't sure what we were going to see from this new group in this competition, but I mean it was a pretty I don't think they really held any punches in terms of the starters. No, no, pretty decent. Well, Foot Mob is a little weird. Let me look at the actual starters graphic because it has Paul Arriola as your striker and I'm like, I don't think that's what happened.
Sounds about right.
I don't know. What did you think from this CONCACAF Champions Cup match and ultimately the 3-1 result? Because I know there were some folks who weren't too happy about what happened within
Mm.
uh, the first and the final whistle, but I mean to get that result on its own is just really really big.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to talk about something that I think applies to a lot of this week, and I've been thinking about it a lot lately, which is championship pedigree.
Mm.
Um, that we talk about this team as a team that like understands how to win, and we talked about this on the first episode. Like it's a move that when you bring back a guy like Kim Ki-hee, or when you talk about bringing a guy like Ladero back, and or who these guys have. Um, that like this is a team that knows how to win, and this is a team that you trust to kind of pull it out when it needs to happen, and like to lock in when it's crunch time. I think it did show up in this game. You know, that 93rd whatever minute goal shows that they were really pushing towards the end there, and that's going to be, I think, a really important goal here in the context of this two-leg tie, because now it means that Antigua is really going to have to come to Seattle and push. You're going to have to get two goals. Um, and I think it was especially kind of notable because this was like maybe a less Sounders experienced starting lineup. You had a few guys who maybe at least haven't played full seasons for this club. I mean, Ariola's there, but you got guys like Pedro who maybe who obviously weren't here for this club winning trophies.
Hmm.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the home opener. But I think that's what I saw from this one is that this looked like a team that has championship pedigree, and that's something good, obviously.
Yeah, and like you said, we'll talk about it when we look at the opener, but this one was something that kind of was like, okay, they do mean business. Like there is um like any championship run in any sport, I feel like will have its hiccups, right? But to start off like this and to kind of assert that does feel really nice. Yeah, like you mentioned, I'm looking at the actual starter because again, I saw Foot Mob and they had Paul up there, and I'm like, nope, that's incorrect. Jordan up top, Paul at the left. They had Jesus at like a more of a center attacking mid.
Mm.
Yeah, Pedro on the right, and that sort of four back lineup, which we didn't, I don't think we saw that as much in the home match. But yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's really big. And with the like we talked about last week, right? You're gonna need to kind of lean on some guys to help bring you through the slog of the summer. And if you do want to get far, like you'll need to have some of those guys who have been in these situations, right, to guide you, you know, because they know how to win a trophy, how to win a title, how to get through the tougher moments. So, yeah, that was really cool to see, and I was really happy to see that because yes, like you said, now Antigua has to come here on Wednesday, and really push. And if you're Seattle, you can game plan around that, which should be fun. Um, Looking into the next one, a few days later here in Seattle, Saturday, February 22nd, under the rain, home opener. Uh, to cite Nico Moreno again, uh, just in the beginning, I was a little worried about the attendance, just
Mm.
seeing
Okay.
how
I'm
it
interested to hear about
seemed
this.
a little, it seemed light. I understand it's raining, like it's a Saturday night in Seattle, like there's all the traffic stuff. I saw the light rail, like light rail's packed, bringing people up, but it did fill in. It did fill in. I was a bit worried about that because I know that was a storyline like last year, right? And even the last few years. Um, about the attendance and such, but glad to see that it filled in. And it looked pretty decent. I think it was just over 30,000. The Sounders have played with the attendance just over 30,000, it feels like, for the last, yeah, few years.
Yeah. Yep.
30,055. Wow. Um, I saw our buddy Michael Martinez pregame,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Um, because whenever I think of Jordan Morris, I think of him. Those two are synonymous. Um, Because to his credit, I understand it. And I was thinking about it before I sent the thing for Owen to join. I was like, Jordan Morris isn't a guy anymore that's going to blow by you with his speed. He's not a big power forward who's going to dominate, with ball possession all the time. Um, and I hate to put it this way because it almost sounds like uneducated, but when the guy just scores, like you need results. At the end of the day, I don't care how it happens and how it gets there. Like if every goal you score is somehow an own goal, then I'm kind of like, this is weird. I don't know if you've really got it or if you just like have a rabbit's foot in your pocket for luck. But Jordan Morris just continues to score. He has the brace in this one for Seattle. They got on the board first in the 19th minute, give up one to Malanda in the 35th, going to halftime all tied up. I'm like, oh well. Here we go. And like I think we talked about it last week, right? Charlotte is a
Huh.
team that is expected to be pretty good. Their star offseason signing Zaha, I don't think he played in this one. I don't think he traveled
Nope.
at all, right? So, I mean that was I mean, you don't want to see anybody hurt, but
I
nice
want
to.
to say he was expecting birth of a child from a report I saw. We can
Oh,
double
okay, good, good, good.
we,
So
we can
nothing
double check that really quick,
crazy, but like at the end of the day, right, you get it. Like it was nice to not have to worry about another talented player. Um, and this one, I do want to like I mentioned not being worried uh about this week, and it's because of how this match ended. Seattle, I mean, Jordan Morris scores his second in the 49th minute. You go up 2-1. You'd probably kind of like you did with the Antigua match, you'd like a third goal to bury this one and have a nice, comfortable two-goal lead. I say two-goal lead, but there's the whole thing about how two-goal lead's the easiest thing to blow, right? Um, I feel bad laughing because it's not too funny,
but
but it's a bit amusing that Seattle gives up this heartbreaker of a goal uh, in 3 minutes into stoppage time, and Charlotte equalizes, and Seattle drops 2 points to open the home opener. I think we're gonna cite Nico Moreno for a third time. Nico
shout
asked,
out.
Nico's great. Nico asked Coach Schmetzer post game how you coach like to avoid this being a letdown, right? Because I think on the play Jackson Reagan tried to head the ball and
Mm.
stop, it coming further into their own half, and it did not go well. Ended up going towards the goal, and Yamar went to stick his leg out to help stop the ball going right through the goal mouth, and went right in past Stephen Fry. I think there would have been a defender if he had let the ball go, but you don't usually let that happen.
No.
Um, I guess two-parter. How did you feel about this match before that happened? And then are you worried about this being like a bad tone setter? Because
Mhm.
I'll give you my th I'm not worried about it. Like those Jackson Reagan and Yamar, while Jackson's a younger guy, they're guys who have been through it. They've been through mistakes and give ups, right? I think we talked about it last week. Defensively, they've been a really good club for years outside of every once in a while having a hiccup, right? Like I'm sure they'll be able to move by it. Now I don't want to see that like be a jinx and then them have like a bunch
Yeah.
of issues, but I'm not worried about it. It's your first match in regular season play. You're going to play a ton of matches this year. If you hone on every single mistake, granted, this one is a match altering one. You can't get through this year, and I think they have the leadership and the brass to be able to get past a mistake like this. That's just
Yeah.
my thought.
No, I do think it's going to be okay. I think it's really nice how we can kind of look at these two games in the span of a few days and say, okay, these are both games where the Sounders went ahead early on, relatively, and then you give up an equalizer and you go into the half 1-1. And we see two, I think, pretty different responses. We see them. You can double check me on this, but you see them kind of come out of the half, really push, and they do get those two goals in the second half of the Antigua game. Um, it's even in kind of an away environment and somewhere that's tough to go play on a field that you're not used to playing on against guys that you don't know how they're going to play. And then you come into this Charlotte match and you really don't you do create in the second half, but you don't create nearly enough. You get a lot. We can talk about Georgie too in a little bit, but he was really that spark plug, and outside of that, we didn't see a whole lot off the left out of Paul Rothrock. Um, and we've talked a lot last year about making changes, and I know Brian said that he was going to be more proactive with changes this year, and I'm curious what you thought about that because we saw Paul was really struggling there for a little bit on the left, and when you're trying, you're saying, hey, look what we did last week, look what we did in midweek. We got this second goal, we could really push for this third goal. That's what sealed this game, and then they weren't able to do it, and they eventually give up the equalizer. I'm not worried about that, but I think it's something that's interesting because you can see two pretty different responses.
Yeah. I think it's funny you kind of bring up the changes, right? You mentioned that and the substitutions in this one. Um,
Yeah.
because I know Brian's gotten a lot of flack over the years for his substitutions and who he has or hasn't brought in. Yeah, I was a little disappointed. I mean, it just kind of felt like Paul was there, just there, and that's fine. And like with this starting 11, I expected, um, we all expected rotation, right? Like especially
Yeah.
a few days after the Antigua match, like it was just gonna happen. Um, yeah, you see Albert back in, Georgie up top. It is really, I like quick
Yeah. Oh
side
yeah, let's talk
thing.
about it.
Georgie's gonna be so
Oh
fun.
God.
I mean, I feel like everyone in Sounders land has been talking about Georgie Monongu, right? And the talent that he's got. I wasn't initially sure when, it seemed like we started to hear buzz around him last season and the potential of him getting more minutes up here. I wasn't sure. I was like, oh, okay. Like I've seen a few Defiance matches with this guy. Like I don't know what I'm gonna get. And just seeing him on the ball, I mean, we both what both him and Paul brought on the ball was exciting.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think that's just like credit too to like what this team can develop because I mean, how many
mhm.
MLS teams, go into the Eredivisie or somewhere in South America and would kill for a early 20s winger like Georgie Manungu and the Sounders have him out of the Defiance and they've been able to really work with him and he trusts them and they just did that all in house. I think
Yeah.
that's a huge amount of credit for guys like Paul too that they're able to do that here and it's just such a blessing for them.
Oh yeah. And I mean, like that'll be such a big thing as the club. Like obviously we talked about the additions, the outside additions this past year, but if you really are able to get jumps from guys like Georgie and Paul, um, that that really helps your championship chances as well, right? So, I mean, I don't know. I feel like this is a tough one. Like at least substitution wise, I thought they made sense. Like bringing in Paul Areola for Paul Rothrock. I'm like, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, this is a guy
Yep.
that contributed. His versatility a bit big. Like he played the sort of position that Paul was playing in this match, in the Antigua match. Um, Jesus Ferreira, yeah. I don't. Did he? I think he had a contribution in the Antigua match, if I'm correct.
I
I,
think he had
I,
the assist on the
on the
Areola
Areola.
goal.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I don't see too many issues. Like they make sense to me. What I'm seeing in this one makes sense, like changes wise, especially in the 87th minute when you put in Pedro for Albert. Like you bring a guy in like Pedro who should be, like we talked about last week, a potential game breaker. You bring him in the last what 13 minutes. Like ideally, having his legs fresh should be big for this club, right? To help kill some minutes or
Hmm.
dominate possession, so on and so forth. I don't know. Like I'm not super mad at it. You dominated shots, you dominated expected goals, you dominated big chances. Like I think you did a lot of things right, and a good team found a way to. No, I don't know if I want to say that.
I don't know if Charlotte's a good team. I didn't like what I saw. Georgie just boat raced Tim Ream there on the left
Yeah,
for
that
about 65, 70 minutes. There was nothing Tim Ream could do.
that is a
Which
fascinating
was
sentence.
unfortunate to see.
Yeah, I don't.
I don't think that Charlotte's a good team and they didn't have their best player. So I think it's very disappointing to drop points here.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I'll give maybe Charlotte a little more credit than that, but I would agree that this is like, with how it ended, is a kick in the teeth.
And Kalina's
It
a great
can,
goalkeeper.
yeah.
That's a huge advantage for
It
them.
can be a kick in the teeth, but also I'm not worried about how it'll affect you going forward. I think both
Fair.
things can be true. Um, so yeah, I mean it was definitely. I mean there were similar situations as you kind of talked about in both of these matches, right? Like trying to get more and add on here and feel more comfortable in the final result. Just didn't work in the second one. I mean, so yeah, that's tough, but I don't know. I'm just not ready to like freak out too much about.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Oh no, I think more of like, and I know as a person in the sports media industry, right? You can't take too much stock into how much fans freak out, but I'm like I know this will be a big thing, like with how that ended. Oh, you're seventh in the this the mighty San Jose Earthquakes are on the top of the Western Conference.
Hey. It's like whatever, stop the count. Like
Not the
the Quakes might be good this year. It's just like sneaky suspicion. That's a cool front too, and I think Christian Espinoza is a good player.
San Diego FC #3.
Championship pedigree, by the way.
Oh
Here's
my
the reality.
God.
We'll keep talking about it. We'll keep talking about it. It matters. It
We
really
will
does
talk about
matter.
it throughout the year. We will like legitimately that will be something that comes up throughout the year. So you want to talk about a guy with some championship pedigree here
Oh
and
God, I don't know
Nico
if he knows how
Lodeiro?
to win. I don't know if he knows how to win.
Oh God, so this is a fourth one now, or is it technically still the third because we referenced it previously and this is I don't know. We're talking about Nico again. Um, there were the reports that Nico Lodeiro essentially wanted out of Orlando, and apparently Seattle was interested. Brian Schmetzer this past week in training ahead of the Charlotte match confirmed that interest was real and that they talked about it. Um, you know, oh, they talked about him on two separate occasions and had some internal conversations about him, but ultimately declined on a reunion. Um, I mean, oh, and I do want your thoughts on this. That's the whole reason we're bringing it up. It's
Yeah,
not just
yeah.
to be like a flyby. Um, it's interesting to me because, obviously Nico's very loved by this fan base. I'm sure he's very loved by this organization. Um, Having a veteran to talk about your depth, like we did last week, could be great throughout the course of the year with how many matches you're going to play, but also like I think you want to leave the door open for potential roster space. Like, given what you've seen in his last year here in Seattle, how much does he really have in the tank? So on and so forth. Da, 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 da. I don't know. What did you think? Like, not of what Brian said, but if I'm putting you in like Brian slash Craig Weibel's shoes, how are you going through the decision making process about the potential of a Nico Lodeiro return? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what are the pros and cons to you?
I think you have to look at this kind of two different ways. I think you have to look at it tactically, and we can talk about whatever, how much he has in the tank and what he can give this team. I think you also have to look at it kind of culturally, and you have to
Mm,
say we did a really, really good job sending this guy off. We didn't, leave him with the championship like we might have wanted to, but we were able to really give him the send off that this club's best ever player deserves. And I think it would take a lot to kind of go back on that from a culture perspective and say, hey, he's going to come back. He might not be as great, and if you're going to bring him back, I think from a tactical perspective, it would have to be in a mentorship role. And I
mm.
think, he would be great for a guy like Pedro or to talk to a guy like Albert or Georgie or some of these young guys who don't quite have that championship pedigree. Um, and say, here, here's the stuff that you're not going to learn from just playing games. Here's the stuff that decades of playing soccer gets you. Um, but I don't think that that is worth the amount of money that you would have to pay him, the amount of time that he would have to be on the field when players with better legs, more in the tank, for the ambition that this club has is great. And I think that's a great reason why Houston signed him. They don't have those cultural concerns where they have to deal with, the fan base is going to have to see him struggle on the field a little bit. And they can say, hey, he's a great mentor. We have the cap space. Um, and he's a guy who's been in this league and can help out a team with a lot of guys who don't have kind of that knowledge. So I do like it for Houston. I like it there. I don't think you can bring him into a team and expect him to play significant minutes, which is the kind of money that the Sounders would have to pay him.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that all makes sense. I mean, again, like just purely in a vacuum, right? I'm not thinking about if I'm thinking about the player and his knowledge, like it would be fun if I could get you on a small deal and you could be a mentor, but I don't know how much of that's possible. And like you were talking about with it, like at some point you just want to leave things as they are, right? You don't want to go you don't want to go back on things too much. So, yeah, I mean, like I get it. I don't think when the reports came out, I was like, go to get him now. Like give him the pen, sign him immediately. Like I wasn't too worried about that. I am happy with where the roster is right now. I mean, that could change and who knows how long,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. I think it makes sense to leave it how it is. And Brian talked about leaving the door open for the potential of it. And if it's something that where he wants to finish his career here, then sure. But obviously, it sounds like he is a guy who wants to keep playing, um, and doesn't think ultimately that the football has left him yet. So hey, I mean, he's in charge of his own career. I'm not going to be one that you know pushes back against that. So you know, yeah, that was kind of it in Sounders land for the past week. I mean, we
Ooh,
had the two matches. We get back into
busy
the swing
week.
of things. Hmm?
Yeah, it's a busy week.
Yeah,
First time in
well.
a while.
Oh yeah. No, I mean it's nice to just have the discourse again, even about like the lineups and such. I guess the
Oh, you
other
know
piece.
what?
Hmm.
Let me tell you about those blue jerseys. They were beautiful on the field.
Oh,
Let me
the
tell you, it's
Salish
the first
kits?
time the Salish kits. Like they look good in pictures. They look amazing on the field. I'm a big fan of them. Huge, just full kit, kind of under the lights. Amazing. Like 10 out of 10.
It's always interesting, and I won't harp on it too much, but like it's always interesting when the kits come out, right? And there's the pushback initially. Like I remember with the Jimi Hendrix kit, it's like, why are the Sounders wearing purple? And then, well, oh, and you'll know I love purple. But like it was interesting to see how much fans loved that after they saw it on the pitch. Or even the Bruce Lee kit. It's like, why are we wearing red? Like I think this one coming out was maybe a little more stomachable for people because it was some blue. It was, it wasn't too different than what the club wears normally. But yeah, no, I'm excited for when they wear them at home so I can see that and we can get pictures of
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But yeah, no, that was cool to see. No, it's just nice to be able to have discourse about the lineup again and to see the I mean, it's like
yeah.
off season you can only do so much and thankfully with this club and especially this year there really wasn't too much of an off season.
Mm.
I would say the only thing like, and this will be a touch because I don't know how much you can talk about a guy being back in training, right? Is the fact that Kim Ki-hee is in Seattle now, in training, so unsure when we'll see him available. But nice that you've got another defender option in there in case you need the depth or you know, or just to even have his veteran presence around. You talk about a guy like Nico
Yeah,
Lodeiro. I
yep,
know he's not
yep. No, exactly.
as you know, the trophy case isn't as deep there, but it's a guy who has played in this league before, and certainly has lots of experience, in football. So, anything before I look at the week ahead, Owen?
Ooh, I was just looking a little bit around the league. Very impressed with San Diego. I saw a couple of those goals, take down the champs, whatever. But that's not nothing. They're not. My friend, good friend Dean Jones from Ranks FC texted me and he said, "We're not here to make up the numbers." I think that might be true.
Oh my
I'm
God.
just happy he has an MLS team.
San
But
Diego
yeah,
and how they've
shout
started
out.
has been so fascinating. It's always interesting to watch like expansion teams, right? Um, their branding's unique. Hey, if it works, it works. I saw a kit actually in the wild the other day. I thought that was really
Did
weird.
you? Okay.
Yeah. I was like, I had to look at the guy. It felt weird looking at someone in public, but I was like, that's weird. So yeah, no, I mean we'll get to that match eventually when we get there. So the week ahead, in a few days, we'll get this out as soon as we can here on Monday, the 24th. In a few days, the Sounders host Antigua, Guatemala here at Lumen Field, 7:30 p.m. kick time. Oh,
That's
they're
past my bedtime.
advertising a hotel. I was like, what is this? Um, 7:30, it's on VIX and Fox Sports 2, which, hey, I mean, it's kind of nice for fans to be able to watch it, not be on Apple, but Fox Sports 2 feels like a demotion. Damn.
Last one
Um,
was on YouTube though, wasn't it?
yes. Well, yeah,
Okay.
CONCACAF broadcast. Yeah, so I mean, that'll be interesting
I'll
actually
be
if
curious if that
CONCACAF
happens again.
does puts that on again. Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, you want more eyes on your product, right? Seattle looking to close that out there in the first round of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and then the next one uh, of the week, um, before we come back on the third for this show is Saturday the 1st, March 1st, on the road at Real Salt Lake at America First Field. I know that's not the easiest place for Seattle to play, Owen.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So 1:30 start time, so we're getting an afternoon game. I don't know. Any quick thoughts on either of those two? Maybe more Real Salt Lake, just because again, that's one that just always seems to be so frustrating to look at the final result of for the Sounders in years past.
Yeah, I mean that'll be a real tone setter. I think if they can go in there and get a win like they haven't been able to do in the last, gosh, decade plus now, I think is
Ah,
where it's at. Was it like 2011?
that
Somewhere in
sounds
there
right. I
is
remember looking
is
at that last year. Yeah.
it just comes up every year, and we say, hey, this is gonna be the year. But I think especially coming off of a disappointing result like the Charlotte one, say, hey, we're gonna go in here, we're going to beat this team, and we don't have a lot down on paper yet. And we have a chance to really just roll in here, take this matchup seriously, you know, hopefully have some healthy guys and try to get a win. I think that's what they'll be saying. I think that could be really big for this team.
Yeah. I mean, go back to champ. We're gonna. Those are buzzword for the buzz two words for the day.
Oh
It's
yeah.
championship pedigree. Um, I mean, the teams that win ultimately, like you have to overcome obstacles that, any mortal version of yourself per se hadn't in past years, right? Like I think maybe it's because it's what I grew up with, but when I thought of like a championship team, the Seahawks when they won the Super Bowl, they were able to take care of the 49ers like when in years past they maybe hadn't, right? So it's like you have to get over the humps that your normal version or the version of yourself that hadn't won a title couldn't, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
this is a match, like you said, set the tone. So, we'll get out of here. But that's another week We had what, 4 Nico Moreno shout outs, 1 Michael Martinez shout out. Like, God, Jesus Christ.
One Dean Jones shout out.
Dean show. Okay, yeah, three people in total. As always, great to have Owen with me. It's fun to see what your friends over at your friends. They're our friends. Over at Area Sports Network, Sounder at Heart did. Nope, wrong one.
House of
Area Sports
Sounders.
Network, House of Sounders. I'm thinking of all of the Sounders stuff right now. Jesus
Lots
Christ.
of great content. Lots of great content.
Lots of great stuff. Just the post game stuff. It was great to see you guys were able to get Tim Ream after that game. I was like, wow.
Oh
Just
yeah. Yeah.
ask how Georgie diced him up. Just but yeah, so we'll put those links in the description here and like on socials where we put this, we'll just tag them. But till we see you next week, another big CONCACAF Champions Cup match, and my this is a great way to end the episode. There we go. Till we see you next week. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Do whatever you can to make today a great day.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey. So where are you going to watch all of the Sounder away games this year?
Away games for the Sounders. Well, since Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, I was thinking of coming here if that's okay with you.
I think that's a great idea. Go Sounders. Hope we see y'all here.